on combination vehicles. Which of the following statements is true? A, it takes longer to stop a loaded vehicle. B, it takes longer to stop an empty vehicle. C, it takes the same amount of time to stop a loaded vehicle as it does to stop an empty one. Or D, none of the above are true. Now the correct answer is B. It takes longer to stop an empty vehicle. And whenever we get to this question, we always get a lot of surprised looks from the drivers. And the reason is this. For years, we've always thought that if you've got a truck and you've loaded that truck with 30 or 35 or 40,000 pounds of produce or of merchandise or cargo of something, that obviously it's going to take a whole lot longer to stop because of the weight. And the truth of the matter is, the more weight you have on the vehicle, as long as you don't overload it, then the more weight you'll have on the tires, thus the more friction you will have between the tires and the pavement, thus allowing you to stop more quickly. An empty vehicle doesn't have that much weight, and so it doesn't have as much friction, and it'll take longer to stop. You've seen empty tractor trailers going down the road, say a flatbed, that when they have to slam on the brakes for whatever reason, the trailer actually jumps up and down, and every time the wheels leave the surface of the roadway, there is no friction and no stopping ability. A jackknife will occur once the angle between the tractor and the trailer reaches what number of degrees? 10, 25, 15, or 5? And the answer is, once the degree of 15 or 15 degrees is reached between the tractor and the trailer, then a jackknife is inevitable. There's no way to prevent it. Now, as we can see on the diagram, there are two types of jackknives. We have a tractor jackknife and we have a trailer jackknife. The trailer jackknife is when the trailer wheels lock up and they attempt to take the lead by coming around. So the rear of the trailer swings around towards the front. That's a trailer jackknife. A tractor jackknife is when the drive wheels of the tractor have locked up and they attempt to take the lead, which means they will swing out either to the left or to the right and then cause the front of the tractor to come back towards the trailer. You have a 60-foot vehicle which is traveling 45 miles per hour. What is the proper following distance that you should maintain from the vehicle in front of you? Now, this gets to be a little confusing, so what I'd like to do is kind of sketch out a diagram for you to see so that you can understand exactly how this works and the formula that the state wants you to use. So again, you have a 60-foot vehicle that is traveling 45 miles per hour. So 60-foot in length vehicle. That's your truck is 60 foot long. Now the formula says this, that for every 10 feet of your vehicle length, you should be 1 second for every 10 foot behind the vehicle in front of you. So in this case, it's a 60-foot long vehicle. You should be 6 seconds behind the vehicle in front of you. 1 second for every 10 foot of your vehicle length for speeds up to 40 miles per hour. So if you're traveling 40 miles an hour, or you're traveling 35 miles an hour, and your vehicle is 60 foot long, you want to be 6 seconds behind the vehicle in front of you. But as soon as you cross over 40 miles per hour, and let's say now you're going 50 or 55 miles per hour, you must add 1 second to the following distance that you need to maintain. So this question here, your 60-foot vehicle is traveling 45 miles per hour. What is the proper following distance? Well, we know that a 60-foot vehicle means 6 seconds. We are over 40 miles per hour. We're at 45, so we must add a second. So the proper answer then is 7 seconds, proper following distance. Now, how do you know, though, that you're 7 seconds behind the vehicle in front of you? Well, it's real easy to figure that out. What you want to do is that as you're driving down the road and there's a car or another truck in front of you, as that car or truck passes a fixed obstacle, that might be an overpass or a tree alongside the road, as that truck or car passes it, you start counting to yourself, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and keep counting until you reach that fixed object. And when you reach it, if you're at 7 seconds, and you know that's how far you are, and then take a look and see about what distance that is. And if you do that frequently enough, it'll become a habit, and you'll always know about how far behind the vehicle in front of you you are. And you want to maintain the proper following distance at all times. Now, how far down the road should you look when driving? And we call this eye lead time. The correct answer is 12 to 15 seconds. And you use the same little formula that I just showed you in terms of counting 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Pick out an object down the road and then count and see how many seconds it takes you to reach that object. At highway speeds, 12 to 15 seconds is approximately 1/4 of a mile. In the city, traveling at city speeds, that would be approximately 2 to 3 city blocks. Now, why do we want to look so far down the road? Well, obviously, we want to look that far down the road so that we can see if an accident occurs or a deer jumps out in front of the road, anything that would affect our path of travel. We see it in enough time that we can react very calmly, begin to slow our vehicle professionally and slowly without having to lock up the brakes and risk a jackknife or a rollover. So always look 12 to 15 seconds down the road. And remember, we call that eye lead time. The trailer air supply control knob, A, is used for parking for short periods of time. B, connects the trailer air tank to the trailer air brakes. C, connects the tractor air supply to the trailer. Or D, operates the tractor protection valve in the event of a rapid air loss and will cause the emergency brakes on the trailer to be applied. The correct answer is D. The trailer air supply control operates the tractor protection valve. You have an air gauge on your dashboard. As you begin to lose air pressure, when it gets to about 60 pounds, there's going to be a low air warning device that comes on, a red light usually, and a buzzer. If the air loss continues and it gets down to between 20 and 40 pounds, normally and usually around 30 pounds, what's going to happen is that your spring brakes are going to apply automatically, and your tractor protection valve on the dashboard is going to pop out, and that is what is controlled by the trailer air supply control valve. The emergency air line is A, also called the supply line, which supplies air to the trailer and controls the trailer emergency brakes. B, always painted blue for easy identification. C, a red 8-sided push or pull knob. Or D, used only in emergency situations. And the correct answer is A. The emergency air line is also called the supply line, and it supplies air to the trailer, and it controls the trailer emergency brakes. Now, you should use wheel chocks when? Well, you should always use your wheel chocks if your vehicle does not have spring brakes, or if you're not sure whether or not the vehicle has spring brakes. And spring brakes are simply those brakes that are part of the emergency braking system that when you apply the brakes or you lose air pressure, the springs then pop out and apply the brakes against the drum and prevent the vehicle from moving. Name 2 types of jackknives. And if you recall, in the diagram, we showed you the 2 types. The first is a tractor jackknife, and the second is a trailer jackknife. You'll need to know this for the CDL test. Now, which is true concerning the use of the trailer hand valve? Now, the trailer hand valve, as you know, we also call it the trolley valve, and sometimes it's been called the Johnson bar. But it's the bar that's up near the steering wheel that when you pull that down, that will lock or at least apply the air back to the trailer brakes and cause the brakes on the trailer to come on. So when we're talking about the use of the trailer hand valve, it should never, ever be used for braking when driving. When you do that, all you're doing is using just a portion of your brakes, and it's very hard to control how much pressure is being applied. So for normal driving situations, only use your regular brake pedal, which is what we call the service brake system. If you're using the proper eye lead time, the distance down the road at which you will be looking at highway speeds will be approximately how far? And if you recall, we said the answer to that is about a quarter of a mile down the road, which will be 12 to 15 seconds. Now, in order to prevent a rollover, which of the following is most helpful? A, go slow around turns. B, never accept high center of gravity loads. C, load the cargo as close to the ground as possible. And D, both A, go slow around turns, and C, load the cargo close to the ground as possible. And that's true. That's what you need to do in order to prevent a rollover. Let's talk for a minute about center of gravity. On commercial vehicles, all commercial vehicles have a high center of gravity. That means that they're more prone to roll over in a turn or a sharp curve. The higher you load your load, the higher your center of gravity, and the more you increase the odds of a rollover. So you always want to keep your load loaded as close to the ground as possible. The service airline, A, allows air to travel from the air compressor governor to the air compressor. B, pops off when air pressure falls below 20 pounds per square inch. Or C, is used only when pulling doubles. Or D, is operated by the brake pedal and the trailer hand valve. D is the correct answer. Remember we said the service brake system is the system that is applied when you step on the brake pedal? Well, the service airline is operated by the brake pedal and also by the trailer hand valve. When coupling to the trailer, the fifth wheel must be what? A, you want your fifth wheel properly lubricated. B, you want it to be tilted down towards the rear of the tractor. C, you want to have the unlocking handle in the automatic lock position. That means that it's pulled out and ready to be locked. Or D, all of the above. Obviously, the correct answer in this case is D, all of the above. Your fifth wheel has to be properly lubricated. It has to be pointed down towards the trailer. And of course, the locking handle has to be pulled out so that it's in the position ready for automatic lock. Is it okay to use the trailer hand valve to straighten out a jackknifing trailer? Now, if you recall, I said that the only way that a jackknife can occur is if the wheels lock up, and then the wheel that is sliding or the wheel that is locked attempts to turn or come around and take the lead. Now, in the event of a trailer jackknife where the rear wheels back at the end of the trailer have locked up, they're going to attempt to come around and take the lead because they're locked up. So using the trailer hand valve, meaning pulling that down to lock the wheels, isn't going to do you any good, and it's just going to absolutely guarantee that you're going to have a trailer jackknife. What you want to do to prevent the trailer jackknife is to take your foot off of the brake or release the trailer hand valve so that the wheels start turning again and gain friction and then pull back in line behind the tractor. When cranking up the landing gear, which of the following statements is true? Landing gear should be cranked up just high enough to clear the ground. Or landing gear should be cranked up as high as they will go and then the crank handle secured. Or landing gear should be cranked up as high as they will go. Or landing gear should be cranked up and then removed for safekeeping. Now, the correct answer is B. You always want to crank up your landing gears as high as you can and then get the handle and secure it. Oftentimes in the yard, when we see folks that are just going to move a trailer from one position to another, they'll crank up the landing gears just an inch or so off the ground. And then they'll hook the tractor to it and they'll start to move. And what will happen is there'll be a little rise in the concrete or the asphalt. The landing gear hits it and is ripped off. So you always want to, anytime you're going to move it, always want to crank it up as high as you can go and then secure that crank handle. Okay, off-tracking. What do we mean by off-tracking, and what's the best way to describe it? Now, the answer is that the rear wheels of the trailer will track further to the inside of a turn than the wheels of the tractor. Let's look at the diagram that'll show that. And you can see, for example, if you're making a right-hand turn and the tractor turns right, the trailer is going to track further to the inside or to the right than what the tractor did. Now, that's not always true, as the other diagram there will show you. If you're in a high-speed curve, and high speed can mean 20 or 25 or 30 miles an hour, such as an exit ramp off of an interstate, and the exit ramp curves, let's say it curves down to the right, and you're going 30 miles an hour. It curving to the right, you curve to the right. Your trailer, because of centrifugal force, will actually be pulled out to the left and will track further to the left than what the tractor did. This has caused a lot of rollovers, and because the trailer wheels can hit the curb, and if it hits the curb, they can just kind of like stumble it or trip it over, and it causes a rollover onto its side. If a trailer is carrying a load, when you crank down the landing gear, you should what after you've cranked it down? And the answer is, after you've cranked down the landing gear and it has touched the ground, you should crank it 2 or 3 more times to raise it just slightly, so that when you pull the tractor out from underneath it, it won't settle down so far that you can't get the tractor back underneath it. When uncoupling and you are pulling a tractor away from the trailer, you should do what? And you've all seen this happen, where they have cranked down the landing gear and they've gotten the locking handle on the 5th wheel and they've pulled it out. They get back in the truck, put it in low gear, and just pull out. The proper way to do that is to pull out so that the 5th wheel is clear of the trailer, and then stop while the frame of the tractor is still under the trailer. You do that just in case either the landing gear might collapse when the full weight of the load in the trailer settled down on it, or perhaps you had parked it in an area where the ground was soft and it would start to sink. So by pulling out until the 5th wheel is clear, and then stopping while the frame rails are still under the trailer, if it does begin to collapse, then you'll be able probably to get back underneath it, or at least the frame will stop it from collapsing all the way. When bobtailing, the glad hands should be secured in such a way as to do what? Now, first off, what do we mean by bobtailing? And obviously we mean a tractor without a trailer. What do you do with the glad hands? Now, the glad hands, of course, are the coupling devices that we use for the airlines, for the service line and the emergency line, the supply line. So how do you protect them so that air and dirt can't get in them? And you use what's called a dummy coupler, as you see pictured here. You simply secure the air lines in those dummy couplers, and that will prevent any air, any water or any dirt from getting into them. Now, if glad hands, after connected properly to the trailer, leak air, what should you do? And the proper answer is release them and then check them and make sure that they're clean, and make sure there's no dirt or any grit or anything around them, and then reconnect them and then test them again. And you'll find in most cases that'll solve your problem. If that doesn't solve your problem, then you'll need to replace the grommets inside of the glad hands before you begin your trip. Is it okay to use the trailer hand valve to park? And the answer to that is no, never, not under any circumstances do you pull down the trailer hand valve to park the vehicle. Now, the reason for that is that if you're pulling an old trailer that doesn't have spring brakes, by pulling that down, if you have an air leak at the trailer, the air could leak off, especially if you've got the engine turned off on the tractor. And once the air leaks off, then your brakes are going to release and you're going to lose your vehicle. So you never, ever, ever use the trailer hand valve for parking. Always use your parking brakes. How often should air tanks be drained? And the correct answer to that, and the answer you'll see on the CDL test, is daily. We recommend that you drain them before you start a trip and then drain them again at the end of the day. So you'd actually be doing it 2 times a day. After coupling to a trailer, you should, A, raise the landing gear slightly off the ground and then tug gently with the tractor to test the connection. B, not check the coupling since you heard the jaws, meaning the trailer jaws, latch. Or C, crawl under the trailer and visually check the connection. And then D, both A and C. And D is the correct answer. You want to raise the landing gear slightly off the ground, and this is after you've backed under it and you've coupled. Raise the landing gear slightly off the ground, lock the trailer wheels, and then just tug on it to make sure that it's locked. Then crawl out and take a look and make sure that the locking jaw did in fact close completely around the pintle hook, or the shank of the upper coupler, and make sure that it locked. Now, how much space is permitted between the upper and the lower fifth wheel plates? And these are often sometimes called the upper and lower couplers, and that's not a term that we use in the trucking industry, so let me kind of explain that to you. We know that a tractor has a fifth wheel, and we know then that on the bottom of the trailer is the pin that we're going to hook the fifth wheel to, and the pin has a shank and then a round head on it. The upper and lower coupler refers to this. The lower coupler is referring, or the lower fifth wheel plate is referring to the fifth wheel on the tractor, and the upper coupler, or the upper fifth wheel plate, is referring to the plate on the bottom of the trailer where your pin is, where the coupling device is. So how much space is permitted between the upper and the lower fifth wheel plates, or the upper and the lower coupler? And the answer is none. Not even enough for a piece of paper to get in there. Once you are coupled properly, there should be absolutely no space between the two. This pretty much concludes the combination vehicle test. What you want to do now